Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday morning, February 4, if you can believe it. So good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital. Still a little chilly here, but no snow on the ground. And the House and the Senate are back in town, so there's a little bit of action going on, indeed. That bipartisanship, remember, on the budget deal before the end of the year has spilled over into at least one other issue. It took them 2 years, but it looks like we're going to get a farm bill. The House of Representatives passed it last week. The Senate passed the procedural vote yesterday by a whopping 72 to 22, which means the final vote in the Senate could come as early as today, probably will. And President Obama says he will sign the bill. Unfortunately, while it does cut some of those ag subsidies that have been lingering around too long, it also cuts $8 billion out of food stamps over the next 10 years. On another big issue, President Obama has been pushing a new trade deal, the so-called Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. Organized labor is against it, so are a lot of environmental groups. And yesterday, Majority Leader in the Senate, Harry Reid, told the president, forget about it. It ain't going to happen. You might as well stop pushing it because we're not going to pass that deal. Good for Harry Reid. And meanwhile, environmentalists upset over that EIR on the Keystone Pipeline released by the State Department last Friday, which comes to the unbelievable conclusion that a pipeline that'll carry that much crud that long distance over so many states would not significantly contribute to carbon emissions. I don't know how they could come to that conclusion. The president's got to veto that project. All that coming up. Give us a call. Stay tuned at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids
you.
how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
Like we may finally get a farm bill. Oh my God, Congress actually getting something done. Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, February 4. How you doing? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. It is the Bill Press Show. Here we go. Another round of our telling you what's going on, and you're telling us what you think about it. For the next 3 hours, we'll be here on your local progressive talk radio station, filling you in on the news of the day and taking your calls at 866-55-PRESS. So good to see you today. And don't forget, if you don't want to comment the old-fashioned way by the telephone, you can join us on Twitter. Send us your comments on Twitter. Easy enough. You send us we're monitoring the site all the time at BP Show. That's our Twitter handle, at BP Show. Or you can send us your comments on Facebook, which all of our real friends do. And if you're not a friend on Facebook, why the hell not? Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. On a busy Tuesday morning here in Washington, D.C., with the House and the Senate both back in town, we got the entire team assembled. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Alicia Cruz there, standing by to take your calls. Cyprian Bolding has us up and looking good on the video cams. Got the lights on, the cameras on. That's where you'll find us on Free Speech TV or on the video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKR-TV. I don't know how many countries we got today. We were up to 21 yesterday, so, we're booming out there all around the planet. There was a lot on the line for the, we talked a lot about the Super Bowl yesterday, a lot on the line for the Super Bowl, more than you might think. A guy who's got furniture store down in Houston, pretty well known down there as Mattress Mac.
Sure,
Mattress Mac in Houston.
Good old Mattress Mac.
I don't know what got into him, but he said you come down and buy a new mattress, buy some furniture, bedroom suite, whatever set. If the Seahawks win the Super Bowl, this is a guy in Houston who's betting against the Broncos who are nearby. But anyhow, kind of weird. If the Seahawks win, I will give you a full refund on whatever you bought. You keep the stuff, but you get your money back. Well, guess what? The Seahawks won. Mattress Mac says he's out of a lot of cash.
Customers came in the 2 weeks before the big game, bought $6,000 of better with furniture. And if the team from Seattle won, they got their furniture free. So over 1,000 families bought an average ticket of about $7,000 apiece. So $7 million in refunds are coming to our great gallery furniture customers.
$7 million?
Whoa.
Do you think maybe he had stupidity insurance?
I hope so. I hope he's covered somehow. I mean, $7 million for a Super Bowl commercial actually isn't that bad if you think about all the press he's getting out of this.
Yeah.
But, that's true.
But
yeah, it's probably $7 million worth of free publicity.
Exactly.
But you know what? Those people I'm sure they're going to take him up on it, right?
Hell yeah.
We'll find out if Mattress Mac is as good as his word.
They better.
And if he's still in business.
If he didn't do it, if he didn't do it, he'd be out of business.
Right.
Then nobody would trust him anymore.
Right.
So last night I was for the first time at a Wizards game here in Washington. I want you to know the Wizards now have a winning record.
Look at the Wizards.
By one game, thanks to me. The Wizards won last night, beat the Portland Trailblazers, which is
a good team.
The Wizards are now over 500, thanks to me, last night. But I noticed they said that if anybody from, it was up on the screen, right? Anybody from a visiting team misses 2 consecutive free throws, everybody in the whole arena gets a free Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Did it happen?
And I was looking around. I mean, the thousands and thousands of people there. Not that it was a huge crowd last night, but I doubt how do they have enough sandwiches? You know what I mean?
That's the thing with fast food. They've got
when you're thinking about selling hot dogs at a stadium, you don't get enough hot dogs so that every single person in the stadium could buy one.
Sure.
Right? There's got to be some percentage.
But, I mean, when they leave, they all go to different Chick-fil-A's over the next several days. They'll.
I thought they got it that night.
No. Oh. You keep your ticket and you take it to wherever Chick-fil-A is closest to you.
I thought you got it that night.
No. They don't have thousands of Chick-fil-A sandwiches standing by in case someone misses.
If I were a member, I didn't figure that out. If I were a member of a visiting team, I'd be tempted to blow 2 free throws just to see if Chick-fil-A was good for their word.
Yeah. Sure.
All right, get your chicken.
Get your chicken sandwich.
Thank me. You got your chicken. Here we go.
By the way, we found your sport.
Basketball.
Because you're essentially banned from going to baseball games because every time you go, the Nationals lose.
Right.
You go to the Wizards game, first Wizards game, and they win.
There it is. My record. I'm going to stop now. It's a Tuesday, so you'll be pleased to know our regulars, Arthur Delaney, Arthur Volsky. Arthur Delaney and Igor Volsky will both be here. We'll also have experts in on two big topics, the Keystone Pipeline and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. We talked yesterday about how we all watched the Super Bowl. We were clearly not alone. The ratings are in. 111.5 million people watched the Super Bowl broadcast.
Wow.
That makes it officially the largest audience in American television history.
Really?
Yep. It is the most watched. That was the most watched television event ever.
Bigger than the final episode of Married with Children?
Bigger than the final episode of MASH or Married with Children.
I can't believe
it. The
it.
previous record was 111.3, which was also the Super Bowl 2 years ago when the Patriots and the Giants played.
Yeah, right.
So there you go, 111.5.
You know, the last time I was on with Reverend Al Sharpton, right? And he asked me the question, like, President Obama's going to give an interview to Bill O'Reilly at the Super Bowl. Why is he doing that? And my answer was, it's easy.
Yeah.
You know why he's doing that? 111.8 million people. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Where are you going to get that kind of audience? Nowhere else.
This could be better than cake for your birthday, Bill. In Montreal, there is an adult film actress by the name of Heidi Van Horney. She is turning 23 years old, and for her 23rd birthday, she is looking for men, 23 men, to be with her on film for her 23rd birthday. It's her way of giving back to fans. She's not looking for someone who is an actor. She's just looking for regular average Joes or average Johns, I guess.
When you say to be with her on film.
In the biblical sense.
You mean...
I mean what you think I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
23 average men to just lay down.
Do you have to try out?
Well, you have to show up, and I assume there's a whole list of criteria that you have to go through. I mean, you know.
I hope she doesn't get gonorrhea for her birthday.
That's the worst birthday present ever. Happy birthday. I gave you a social disease. Yeah.
So, and where is this?
This is in Montreal.
Oh,
so
Montreal.
You can go to Montreal.
Okay.
She has on her website, which I'm not going to give you. You can find it if you want to, you perverts. And you could be with Heidi Van Horney.
No, I
mean, with a name like that, she really only has one career option, right?
Yeah, right. That's her real name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course it is. I'm sure it is.
All right.
Bill,
for the record, Carol, I have not bought a ticket to Montreal.
I hear it's lovely this time of year. And the executors of Nelson Mandela's estate says that he left behind about $4.1 million. Beneficiaries of his will include his family, members of his staff, schools that he attended, and the African National Congress, the liberation movement during the white rule that now governs South Africa. The executor says he is not aware of any challenges to the provisions of the will, and the anti-apartheid leader who became South Africa's first black president. So it looks like this is all just going to go along according to plan. Remember, Mandela died last year at the age of 95.
It's interesting that he'd been able to amass a
$4.1 million.
A pretty sizable portfolio there.
Yeah, not bad.
Here we go now, 15 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed, a lot of hubbub going on around the Keystone Pipeline and the release of the Environmental Impact Report by the State Department on Friday. This was a topic, one of the topics of conversation between Bill O'Reilly and President Obama Sunday during in the pre-taped but mid-game interview with President Obama. And Bill O'Reilly says, so come on, you got to approve this, right?
Keystone Pipeline, new study comes in, environmental impact negligible, 42,000 jobs. You're going to okay it, I assume.
Well, first of all, it's not 42,000. That's not correct. It's a couple thousand to build the pipeline. But
42 all told.
The bottom line
No,
is
it's
we're
not.
going to do is the process now goes. Agencies comment on what the State Department did. Public's allowed to comment. Kerry's going to give me a recommendation. We're not going to.
So I assume we're going to do that after 5 years.
We'll take a look at it.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes.
What an arrogant a-hole is Bill O'Reilly, at any rate, pushing the president on that. But this is really disturbing, I find, right now. So let's just put this in context, okay? We know what this project is. This project would take the tar sands from Alberta and ship them, 1,700 miles by pipeline from, again, Alberta, Canada. Canada, this is a Canadian project by a Canadian company, but they won't build it in Canada because it would do too much environmental damage. So they want to bring it across the United States instead. That's the bottom line here. So it would take this the tar sands from up there, the heaviest, gunkiest stuff you can imagine, pipe it 1,700 miles across some 10 states down to the Gulf of Mexico, refine it, and then ship it overseas and sell it in China and Japan. So basically, we're getting nothing out of this pipeline, and it would ship 830,000 barrels a day. Now, so that's the project. And here's the president, okay? Here's a president who said time and time again, we have to make the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy. We have to do more on solar, more on wind, more on conservation, get away from fossil fuels. He's got an all the above strategy to kind of move us away from fossil fuels, and he's done a lot. He really has done a lot in that area. He's also said that the Keystone Pipeline will only create 50, not 42,000, 50 permanent jobs. And he said he would only approve it, because he gets the final word, if it would not significantly contribute to carbon emissions. So he's laid down the rules. Now you got this EIR coming out, and the EIR says on jobs it'll create 1,950. I mean, that's 42,000. I don't know, Bill O'Reilly pulled that out of his ass. But the EIR says construction jobs for the next 2 years, 1,950, and then 50 permanent jobs on the pipeline. And the EIR, to everybody's just astonishment just about, except for the oil industry, says that this big oil pipeline will not significantly contribute to carbon emissions, will have a negligible effect. I don't know how they can come to that conclusion. So now the project is up to, that's the EIR. We get to comment on it. Secretary of State John Kerry makes his recommendation to the president, and the president gets the final decision. So there were all kinds of protests yesterday. There'll be more in the weeks ahead. Remember, this is the one, the most outstanding protest against any project that I've ever seen is the one against the Keystone Pipeline, where they circled the entire White House grounds, all 18 acres, with a pipeline to make the point that we were all going to be basically held hostage by this pipeline if they ever build it. There are hundreds of people arrested during that protest. But you're going to hear a lot more about it. And honestly, I don't see how the president can possibly approve this project. If indeed we believe him, if he has any credibility, if he really does believe in saving the planet and the environment, if he really does believe that climate change is a serious problem, if he really does believe that we have to transition into a non-fossil fuel economy, I don't think there's any way that the president can approve this pipeline. I don't care what the EIR says. And we know that John Kerry in the Senate was a big opponent of the Keystone Pipeline. So I think we got our ducks in a row with a president who's talked critically about it and a Secretary of State who's been opposed to it. But now you've got this EIR, And the worry is that this EIR, President Obama could use that as an excuse to approve the Keystone Pipeline. What do you think? 866-55-PRESS. 866-55-77377. I don't know. I don't want to be too nervous here, but I smell a rat, baby. I smell a rat. I'm afraid this pipeline could be coming. I hope President Obama doesn't do it. Let's put the pressure on to make sure he doesn't. We'll be right back and talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. 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 Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Arthur Delaney from Huffington Post up in the next half hour here of the program. And, Peter, we've been talking about the Keystone Pipeline and this EIR that came out from the State Department on Friday, basically saying, hey, no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. And I hope John Kerry and President Obama recognize it and thumbs down. Peter.
We're on Twitter at BP Show, BP Show, where Rodeo Gal says, good for you, Bill. Fight this pipeline nightmare. Let Canada eat their own filthy fuel. And Jessica Ramsaran says, on the job numbers that Bill O'Reilly cites that seemed awfully high, she said maybe Bill O'Reilly took into account all the cleanup jobs that that oil spills would create.
Yeah. By the way, that's probably what it's all about. They'd have to have 42,000 people standing by.
Right.
Because you know damn well that pipe's there'll be a spill at some point. Terry is calling from Holton, Indiana. Hey, Terry, what do you say?
Well, good morning.
Hi.
What I have to say on the pipeline, until they can guarantee that the darn thing won't leak, because we've had numerous pipes burst all over the country.
Serious ones, yes.
Yeah, right. And, you can't tell me there won't be environmental damage. Since it's not going to benefit the U.S., I don't see how we get any real gain from this.
No, you know what? It benefits Canada, and it benefits the countries who are going to buy the gas. It's not going to benefit the United States. All we are is a throughway for it. Quickly, Susan out in Sterling, Oklahoma. Hi, Susan.
Good morning, Bill. The carbon is not really the major threat. It's a possibility of contamination to our water supply.
That's true.
Because this area raises about a third of the cattle and a lot of crop wheat that is going to be jeopardized.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why even a couple of Republican governors, remember the Republican governor of Nebraska, that this pipeline would go through, have expressed a lot of concern because of the possible impact on the drinking supply. Good calls coming up. Arthur Delaney from Huffington
Post. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday morning, February 4, the Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right in the heart of the action, right on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers, the good men and women of the AFT under President Randy Weingarten, making a difference every day in the classrooms of America. You know they are, and you can find out more about their good work at their website, aft.org. Tuesday morning, he's here, Arthur Delaney. Yeah, we missed him last week. Huffington Post covers all issues related to the middle class, does a damn good job, and it's good to see you again, Arthur.
Good to be here. I'm sorry I phoned it in last week.
I know.
Literally.
Thanks for having me back.
Those people who phone it in, right. Hey, so do you have a good Super Bowl party? Everything?
I enjoyed the Super Bowl. The game was terrible, but, you know, it's fun to drink beer and watch TV.
It's never actually about the game these days. You know?
We've had some great games in recent years.
No, but it's not about sitting down and watching the game. It's about having the party and drinking and eating and all that stuff.
What I found was interesting was the record number of viewers Sunday. What was it, Peter?
111.5
million viewers for a game that wasn't that hot a game.
Well, they were expecting it to be lower because, I mean, the route was on pretty early.
Yeah, but
Bruno Mars brought it.
Oh,
it was awesome.
He brought it. He brought it home.
That Trump solo
Arthur,
made me
just
so
before
happy.
we got here, we've been talking about the Keystone Pipeline. The EIR came out Friday saying it would have only a negligible effect on carbon emissions. I don't know how they could come to that conclusion for a pipeline that travels 1,700 miles, 830,000 barrels a day, and is all about oil, oil, oil. But one final comment on that before we move on to some things you want to talk about. Tim is calling from up in Bristol, Vermont. Hello, Tim. Hello, Tim. Hello?
Wake up, Tim.
No. Okay. All right. What the hell?
Thank you for your comment, Tim.
Yeah, made time for Tim, and then he disappeared on us. All right. Goodbye, Tim.
See you, Tim.
Hello, Arthur. Where do we start? Let's start with the Farm Bill.
All right.
Because here we are. Everybody was wondering, with this little bipartisan, warmth around the budget deal before the beginning of the year, would any of that carry over into the new year on any other issue? And it looks like it has on the Farm Bill, because the House passed it, bipartisan vote. Yesterday, the Senate took its procedural vote. Are we going to be able to vote on this? 72-22, they said yes, and the final vote could come as early as today. Tell us about this bill. Does it have anything good in it?
Well, the biggest part of this bill is food stamps. And this bill only cuts food stamps by about 1%. It will reduce benefits for maybe 800,000 people by about $90 a month. but that is a much smaller cut than all the others that had been under discussion for the past several years. So a lot of liberals and Democrats are happy about it. Not all are, because why cut food stamps at all?
At all. That would be my position,
but
my vote.
It's
right.
such a small amount, and the annual spending of the program fluctuates so much. It's almost like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can explain how the cut works if you want me to, but it's a little complicated.
Please don't then.
Okay.
But if 90, it seems to me, if you're on food stamps, $90 a month is that's one big grocery order for sure.
Oh,
right?
it's like three big grocery orders.
Yeah,
it's significant for the people who will be affected by it. It's just that such a vast population is served by the program. In proportion, it doesn't seem like such a big cut, especially considering the constant letters to the editor and stories about people in front of you in line who were buying soda with food stamps, and it made you really mad. This is something that people like, for instance, the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, very influential liberal think tank, can say, well, we shore up public support for this program by being able to say, it's taken a modest cut.
Mm-hmm.
The belt, it's tightening its belt. It's at the kitchen table, making the sacrifices, sharing the sacrifice.
And the originally House Republicans wanted 30 or 40
billion. They wanted $40 billion over 10 years.
Billion.
That would have been a 5% annual cut, and it would have kicked about 4 million people off the program. That's a big number,
right?
Compared to what we're talking about.
So everything is relative compared to what they really want to do. This is a victory. What about getting rid of some of the subsidies in the in the whole agricultural business?
Well, that's why we have such a warm and fuzzy and cuddly bipartisan scenario, because the bill throws money at big agribusinesses.
Still does, right?
Yeah. That's never been the controversial part of this. Only the food stamps was controversial. The need to lavish money on profitable industry has never been controversial. What it does is there are a variety of programs that support farms, and one of them had been direct payments. And this is the most controversial one, where people were getting paid even if they weren't even farmers, or even if they didn't grow anything. And it was about $5 billion a year. They're getting rid of that completely. But instead of just getting rid of it, they're taking a lot of the savings and plowing it in to crop insurance, which is really just a little bit more market-oriented seeming, but is still a subsidy going to huge companies that may not really need it.
I've seen that phrase, crop insurance. Not being a farmer myself, but to me it means is it sort of takes the risk or the gamble out of farming, right? I mean,
the government helps you buy insurance in case there's bad weather or a wild market fluctuation that makes your crop completely unprofitable.
But isn't sort of the nature of the business, even if you're planting your little vegetable garden in your backyard? You may have a good year for tomatoes. You may not, right?
Well, that's supposed to be the nature of business in general, right?
I thought so, right?
Yeah. But there's always been this is important. It's our food, but I believe it's much less true than it used to be that there's that farms are going to go belly up because of this. More and more farming is done by these huge agribusinesses. It's not so much the small family operation that it might have once been.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems to me, I don't know how far you can go with this program, but like, look at the drought in California. I mean, I've seen so many stories. People are really, really being hurt by this. But can the government insure against every crop loss?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that even though we're talking about, I'm saying things like we're lavishing money, it's still a much smaller part of this overall legislation than the food stamps, because that really is the majority of this.
That is the biggest piece of it. Okay. One other issue that the president that you've been writing about, and the president had some meetings at the White House on last week, is the long-term jobless people. These are the ones who lost their benefits, right? at the beginning of the year because Congress did not act and still hasn't acted to extend unemployment insurance for them. What can the president do about that, and what's he trying to do?
Well, most long-term unemployed don't get anything. There are 4 million people who are out of work 6 months or longer. About 1 million of them, fewer than 2 million, actually got benefits. But that program ended because Congress didn't renew federal unemployment insurance. So President Obama has followed through on something he talked about last year, which was that I'm going to pressure CEOs not to discriminate against the long-term unemployed. And this is a problem that we've seen anecdotally, and then there have been a lot of research papers where people have tried to figure out what happens if you send out thousands of resumes and some of them show that a person hasn't been working for the past few months. And if you have a gap in your resume like that, the research has shown you're just not going to get a call back.
It's a stigma, right? They'll say, he's been out of work for 6 months. There's something wrong here, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine how that becomes a self-perpetuating problem, and then it leads to people losing confidence and being unable to perform as well, perhaps in interviews. But they don't lose their job skills. When I interview people in this position, it's they lose their nerve eventually, and that's a separate issue, but incredibly.
I'm sure they lose hope. Right?
So Obama's just saying, let's not do this, and he got all these 300 companies to sign a pledge saying we won't do this. We'll review our recruiting practices. We'll share tips on how to hire from the long-term unemployed with other companies. And these CEOs came to the White House on Friday in a show of support for this. Rupert Murdoch wasn't there, but his company is one of the ones that thinks this is a fine thing to do.
Is it too soon to know whether this is going to work, whether there's going to be any follow-through? I mean, these guys, I'm sure, you come to the White House, you sit down in the Roosevelt room with the president, and you say all the right things, but do they follow through?
There's no way to force them to. Even if they did follow through, it's not something that's going to cure the problem of long-term unemployment. I mean, how many new jobs are created every month? Right. It's in the low hundreds of thousands, and we're talking about millions of people. But it should probably help some people. It can't hurt is one important thing about it. But there's no penalty. They don't have to prove they're doing it. It's really all about the bully pulpit, raising awareness of the problem. Some people might just not have ever thought about it.
Right.
And there's just inertia for no reason. So it's something he can do without Congress, without an executive order even, just to draw attention to the problem.
And a good thing for him to do is sort of a subtle form of discrimination, which some of them may not even realize was taking place within their companies when they're looking through resumes, and they just throw those aside because they've been out of work too long. Right?
That's it's not always even subtle. I mean, there have been a lot of job ads where it say must be currently employed.
Oh, really?
And there was bad press over that in 2010, and you go on Craigslist, you don't see that so much anymore. But it's like you said, it's subtle, it's internal, and it's not even necessarily written down. Like, don't look at these people, HR team, but they might happen to do that.
Very, very important issue. The president on top of it, the long-term unemployed. Is he doing the right thing? Can we do any more about it? 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. And on the farm bill, cutting food stamps by $8 billion. Democrats doing the right thing by supporting this legislation, crop insurance and all. Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com. Your call's welcome at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case. Turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go at 10 minutes now before the top of the hour. Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post. Igor Volsky from Think Progress joining us at the top of the next hour. HuffingtonPost.com. Arthur, your basic beat, which I really value, is the middle class, the working class Americans in this country. And everything we hear is that there's been a lot of progress, a lot of growth in this economy, but most of it has gone up here to the top 1%, and everybody else is just kind of...
Yeah, almost all of it.
All of it. You're right. And everybody else is just kind of just like they're lucky if they can hold their own,
Yeah.
right? Without going backward, right?
And so one of the big questions is the growth at the top a cause of the stagnation in the middle and the bottom?
So what is this? What is the state of the middle class in America today?
Well, it's like you said, it's
struggling.
It's struggling. Things are getting better for the richest people. That's where all the income gains are going. And I think it partly reflects this obsession in this country with shareholder value. That's what companies want to maximize, and they want to reward CEOs. And I think that's why you see wage gains going to the people who are investing and not to the workers. There's just like not much pressure for them to pay their workers.
And is that why people don't feel better about this economy? Because, I mean, here's President Obama, right? The economy really has come back remarkably. Maybe not in the rebound that everybody was looking for, but we're a hell of a lot better off than we were 5 years ago. But people don't seem to feel good about that. Is that why, do you think? Because it's not widespread across the American population?
Yeah, well, their jobs have come back, right? The unemployment rate has gone down.
Yeah.
The economic growth is positive. But the jobs that have...
Corporate profits, boom.
When the Great Recession happened, most of the jobs we lost were middle income and upper income jobs. And what have they been replaced with? It's been mostly low-wage work in retail and food services. So people who lost their jobs as
healthcare, probably
right,
too.
People who lost their jobs as office managers are now going to work in restaurants and storefronts, stuff for which they are very overqualified. And then there's this subset of people who are long-term unemployed who are really getting what I call the Soylent Green treatment. One thing that happens, I was interviewing this woman in Wilmington last week, and she's doing everything she can to maintain her credit. So, not really buying food anymore, making sure she stays current on bills, because so many companies, like you said in the LifeLock ad, do check credit. And what do they do that for? I mean, what does your credit history have to do with how you are as a worker? It just shows you how once you're out of work for a certain period of time and your situation deteriorates, that itself becomes a barrier to getting back in. So there's the middle class stagnating, and then these millions of people who are just kind of pushing out of society. So it's a real drag.
And in terms of, and there doesn't seem to be any real incentive on the part of Congress to help average middle class Americans. I mean, again, I don't say, look, unemployment insurance, they can't get it extended. Minimum wage.
I think minimum wage will get some legs.
What happened?
Not right now. Maybe let's check in again after the midterm primaries this spring, and see if Republicans have a kinder, gentler look on minimum wage.
The whole idea that should be a political football is offensive to me. Arthur Delaney, always good to see you, my friend. Thank you for coming in today. And thank you for standing up for the middle class. At least you talk about them. You write about it. How many other people do? Huffington Post.
I'm not the only one, but thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
All right, coming up in the next segment, Igor Volsky here from Think
This
Progress.
is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Bill Press Show this Tuesday morning, February 4, if you can believe it. So good to see you today. Thank you for joining us. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital. Still a little chilly here, but no snow on the ground. And the House and the Senate are back in town, so there's a little bit of action going on, indeed. That bipartisanship, remember, on the budget deal before the end of the year has spilled over into at least one other issue. It took them 2 years, but it looks like we're going to get a farm bill. The House of Representatives passed it last week. The Senate passed the procedural vote yesterday by a whopping 72 to 22, which means the final vote in the Senate could come as early as today, probably will, and President Obama says he will sign the bill. Unfortunately, while it does cut some of those ag subsidies that have been lingering around too long, it also cuts $8 billion out of food stamps over the next 10 years. On another big issue, President Obama has been pushing a new trade deal, the so-called Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP. Organized labor is against it, so are a lot of environmental groups. And yesterday, Majority Leader in the Senate, Harry Reid, told the president, forget about it. It ain't going to happen. You might as well stop pushing it because we're not going to pass that deal. Good for Harry Reid. And meanwhile, environmentalists upset over that EIR on the Keystone Pipeline released by the State Department last Friday, which comes to the unbelievable conclusion that a pipeline that'll carry that much crud that long distance over so many states would not significantly contribute to carbon emissions. I don't know how they could come to that conclusion. The president's got to veto that project. All that coming up. Give us a call. Stay tuned at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma. Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, don't look now, but Congress may actually get something done this week. The Senate voting today on a farm bill. President Obama says he'll sign it. Good morning, everybody. Here we go on a Tuesday, February 4, the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from our nation's capital. Bringing you the news of the day and standing by to take your comments, get involved in the conversation here on your local progressive talk radio station. Good to have you with us, wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours. Good to see you on Free Speech TV. If you got a satellite dish on the Dish Network or DirecTV, and good to see you on the video stream, wherever you happen to be on the planet. 21 countries yesterday tuning into the video stream. TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. There'll be even more countries tuning in today. We'll probably have a big viewership in Russia today. Igor Volsky is here, as he is every Tuesday morning.
Welcome all my Russian friends.
All your relatives?
Yes.
You put the word out to the family?
Well, in multiple countries, so that's why probably a third is from me. You're welcome.
Right, it is. You got it. Igor joining the team. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hi, guys.
Good morning.
Alicia Cruz, she's there on the phone already this morning and ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And we are looking at you. You can see us on Free Speech and on the video stream, TawkrTV, thanks to Cyprian Bolding, our videographer, who's got us looking good there on camera. Don't forget, you can join the conversation again anytime at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. It's a big week. You know, this is Jay Leno's last week.
Oh, my.
I mean, I got to tell you, I know we differ about this, but I admire the fact that he's been there so long and really done, I think, a great job.
And has been number
NBC.
One for a very long time, going out on top yet again.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's
not my favorite comic, but he's been consistently good for a long time.
I think there was a time that
I'm
he
a
was
fan.
a lot funnier, and I think he started phoning it in a little bit. But you cannot deny the fact that he has delivered ratings. But I also think that it says a lot about sort of the decline of the late-night hosts and their relevance. Because, I mean, in Johnny Carson's day, it was like a 3-month-long farewell tour, and every night was special. Whereas,
well, Leno's attitude here is also kind of grim. I mean, he doesn't appear very happy about it and all the publicity. I think what you could see, though, is Jimmy Fallon, who's really been a master of using social media and having the viral moment, can kind of lead to maybe a resurgency in late-night comics because he can play in kind of the new media, and he's a young voice.
At some point, you got to pass the torch. And, of course, I think also what everybody remembers is that NBC tried to dump him 4 years ago, right? And
wouldn't go quietly.
That didn't go so well with Conan. So now this is the second time around. And we have seen this before, which David Letterman couldn't help but notice last night.
Big news in the world of late-night comedy, ladies and gentlemen. Jay Leno is his last week. It's Jay Leno's last week. Wow. Yep. And also, it's the beginning of the Winter Olympics. Two events that happen every 4 years.
That's pretty good.
Touche. All right. So coming up,
you can never resist just twisting that knife off the thing, man.
Igor Volsky here for our first half hour on this Tuesday morning. And then later, we've got the experts coming in about the Keystone Pipeline, about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and about the Farm Bill. Oh, my God.
So
I'm telling
wonky.
you. Here we
We'll make it fun.
But first,
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. I know how excited we are that the 2016 presidential race is just days away.
Got my calendar pages I'm ripping off.
We're taking off the days here. Well, a new nationwide study done by CNN shows that Chris Christie's national poll numbers have dropped a little bit since this scandal over the bridge.
Stop it. Stop taking these polls, these dumbass polls.
I report, you decide. Chris Christie in December was beating Hillary Clinton 48% to 46%. And then in this most recent poll released yesterday, He has dropped significantly, and Hillary has risen. She is now topping him 55% to 39%.
Well, Peter, you know what it is. Huckabee's now leading. It's libido-mentum. It's taking him. He's at 16% now, I think.
All these polls are meaningless. Totally meaningless.
I don't disagree. I'm just reporting, sir. That's what, that's all I do.
You and Fox.
This is a story so perfect it can only come from Congress. The Washington Post has the story of tanks in the military. Tanks? Military personnel have said we don't really need new tanks. We have tanks in place. We can focus on upgrading them. However, Congress said, the hell with what you think. We're going to continue to make these tanks. They cost billions of dollars every year. And the Army says, we don't need them. Congress says, too bad. You get to have them. It's a great story in the Washington Post. We're going to tweet it out if you want to get all the details.
Why can you imagine that we would ever be involved again in a war where you would use tanks?
No, but the people in their districts are asking, where are the jobs?
That's what it is.
Where are the jobs?
Yeah. So let's build tanks we don't need.
Yeah. They're big.
Happy birthday, 10 years ago.
By the way, I was at the Air and Space Museum Saturday. I have to tell you. Right? Air and Space Museum Saturday. Hadn't been there a long time. And, of course, among all aircraft, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. They've got drones. They have a display of drones. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, man.
Well, you got to phase out the tanks into the drones. This could be, you got to develop with the times here.
All right, so 10 years ago, today, in a Harvard dorm room, Mark Zuckerberg gave birth to Facebook. Facebook is 10 years
the
old
Facebook,
today.
Peter,
It
the
was
Facebook.
the Facebook at the time. The Facebook. Now it's just become Facebook, and it's become, the subject of...
I'm upset his first venture, Face Smash, didn't survive, where you rate who was hotter.
You would have thought that would have had a longer life.
I'm still way more interested in Face Smash. But
10 years ago?
10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
It looks a lot different. It's grown up a lot.
No, it does. But, just think how wealthy this guy is and how far he is.
10 years.
10 years.
Really, the birth of social media changed political communication, changed internet law, cyber law. It's really a different world today.
We post a daily parting shot every day on Facebook, and we get hundreds of comments on a daily basis.
Just another platform.
Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg.
Happy birthday.
13 minutes after the hour now. Igor, where do we start? You a very interesting comment about, we asked you last week whether you're going to Sochi. We thought you might be.
Still not going, but want to go.
Okay. And would go, you said. You posted an interesting article there about Sochi. Tell us about it.
Well, this is Travis Waldron's, our sports reporter, reporting that the cost for these Olympics are the highest ever at $51 billion. $51 billion, more than $12 billion, what Russia had initially projected for the Games. Of course, you always have cost overruns when it comes to building stadiums anywhere. The Olympics are infamous for it. But here, a lot of the expenditure comes for security, because you've seen all these reports about the possible threats, the separatists. And so it's going to be one really expensive Games, which begs the question, what is Russia really getting out of it? Certainly, you'll see in the opening ceremony, Putin trying to position Russia in a certain way in the world as this great, powerful country. But there's a lot of needy people in Russia. There's a great wealth disparity. Poverty is very high. And so you ask, is it smart necessarily to be spending $51 billion on an Olympic Games?
Russia pays this?
Russia, I think, pays a lot of it. Yeah, I think it mostly comes out of Russia.
That question, what they get for it, boy.
Yeah.
And also, what role is Putin himself going to play? I wouldn't be surprised if Putin competes in one of these events.
Goodness. Oh, my.
Shirt off in the snow.
Yeah, well, that's what I expect in the opening ceremony. Just rides in on a horse shirtless in some way.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we can't get into Sochi because we're too busy talking about Chris Christie. You and I have talked about it. Think Progress. ThinkProgress.org. We always advise you to check it out, make it your homepage, and go there several times a day to keep up to date on what's happening anywhere around the planet, but especially here in Washington, D.C. And Chris Christie's having an impact, certainly, because he wants to come down here and run things in Washington, D.C. But meanwhile, he's got some problems at home. He thought he had put this scandal behind him by saying, I knew nothing about this at all. Now there's a new wrinkle, right?
A former ally, this is David Wildstein, who went to Livingston High School with Christie, a high school I attended as well for 2 years. Just, I don't know if there's an coincidence or connection there. Yeah. Yeah. Now claiming he resigned last year when the scandal kind of popped open because he was one of the aides who orchestrated the traffic jam.
He's the one who got the email from Bridget Ann Kelly saying time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee.
Right. So he hasn't spoken to the Senate committee, the state Senate committee investigating any of this. He pledged the 5th. Now his lawyer is claiming in a letter to the Port Authority that he has documents proving that Christie knew about the jams as they were happening.
Not before,
but
as they were happening.
But as they were happening. And Christie, of course, has denied any knowledge of this, at least didn't know what was motivating them. I mean, he may have known they were happening because that was news at the time, if you have traffic jams on local news, but he didn't know that they were happening. Christie has now taken on the New York Times that first reported the story, saying that they have engaged in sloppy reporting and yellow journalism and all of this. And so now it's an open question of what do these documents say and what exactly do they prove?
Christie yesterday went on the local radio in New Jersey, asked the governor to say that actually, despite what Wildstein's attorney has said, Christie insists nothing has changed.
Before these lanes were closed, I knew nothing about it. I didn't plan it. I didn't authorize it. I didn't approve it. I knew nothing about it.
Now, that's his story. He's sticking to it. And so far, despite this letter, we don't have any evidence
There's
to
no direct
disprove that,
proof so
correct?
far.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, will we ever know? Because Wildstein, when he was called to testify, went and pleaded the 5th. Yesterday, documents were due from the subpoenas. They all had to be turned in yesterday. Bridget Ann Kelly, his deputy chief of staff, the one who wrote the email saying time for traffic problems. So basically the one who, so far as what we've seen, started this whole thing. She said yesterday she was not going to release any documents. She was taking the 5th and demanding that under the Fourth Amendment, she also has the right of privacy, and they ought to leave her alone. So if these people don't testify, and it's their right not to testify, right, we may never get to the bottom of this?
We may not. I mean, politically, the damage has already been done. This is just scandal 1 of, 4 that Christie's now facing. And Wildstein, we should point out, is in search of a plea bargain. So whether or not he's using some documents for leverage or has incentive
but he
to
hasn't been charged with anything
He
yet.
hasn't, but he's trying to make a deal. So, so far, I think, obviously, if there were these damning documents, I think eventually they're going to come out because there's great political motivation from Democrats and from Christie opponents to kind of get this out. As you say, he's an ambitious guy, and people want to kind of pull back on that ambition. So I think if there's something very damning, I think sooner or later, given that there's this kind of blue panel investigating this whole thing, eventually it's going to come out.
You've got the state legislature investigating the U.S. attorney up there, at least with a preliminary investigation. But Christie insisted yesterday he can't wait for these investigations to be over to clear his name. I think he's still a long way away from that. Igor Volsky is here with us from Think Progress. We had a very important, talked about this a little bit in the last hour. I want to get your take, Igor, on the EIR, on the Keystone Pipeline that came out of the State Department on Friday. Surprised a lot of people. We'll talk about it when we come back here. Your calls welcome on anything we've been talking about with Igor Volsky at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 None of us would want to be told we can't marry the person we love. As Americans, we believe in freedom. That's what I fought for as a Marine, and that's what we believe in as Republicans. Freedom means freedom for everyone. I didn't used to understand the importance of same-sex marriage, but after learning my brother was gay, I wanted the same rights for him. He was the best man at my wedding, and I want to be the best man at his. It's only fair that Calvin should have the freedom to marry the person he loves, too.
It's time for marriage.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Press Show.
25 minutes after the hour, we'll talk the Farm Bill in the next half hour here with Roger Johnson, president of the National Farmers Union. Igor Volsky is here from Think Progress. Not a lot of time, Igor, but environmentalists, I think, were stunned when the State Department finally released its EIR on the Keystone Pipeline, saying, in effect, that okay, we build a pipeline and we'll have a negligible effect on carbon emissions.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, I think, for environmentalists. I think people were shocked that the assumption still is that that oil is going to come out of the ground one way or the other. And so using the pipeline isn't that bad given that belief. And there's some contention of what that actually happened, because if you can't build the pipeline, bringing the oil down to the refineries, in the South, maybe you can use railway, which is less safe and a lot harder to do and not as feasible. And then the question is, why does it have to come down this way anyway through the United States? Why can't Canada just build up its refinery capacity and refine its own oil there? Because, of course, the danger is the environmental impact as it's coming down, the spills as it's coming down, the health consequences as it's coming down. So a lot of questions remain. Now it goes to Secretary of State Kerry, who's going to make the decision. But ultimately, of course, recommendation. But ultimately, the decision is with President Obama.
Right. And on the jobs front, according to the report, for 2 years, construction jobs, 1,950, which is good.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's
temporary.
Not, exactly. And permanent jobs, 50.
50 jobs.
50. Sam is calling from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, with a comment on the pipeline. Hey, Sam.
Hey, God bless you, and top of the morning to you there, Bill Press.
All right. Well, thank you, man. Thanks for joining us. What's your comment?
Well, we're going to have to wage war on these fossil fuel companies, I'm telling you, because they're not letting up. They got some kind of agenda, and I don't know, they can't see past the end of their nose or something. We're going to run out of air on this planet if they don't quit this polluting stuff. And here in West Virginia, there's a rumor going on that the oil companies and the coal companies are going to come together, and if this Shelley Moore Capio gets elected in as senator of West Virginia, there's a plan to blow out 30 more miles of mountaintops. And we got to stop this. We're going, us people, the people of the United States is going to have to take a stand.
You got it. Sam, good to hear from you in West Virginia. I can't, here's what I don't understand. How can the president say we need to turn the corner from our dependence on fossil fuels and approve the Keystone Pipeline?
Yeah, well, that's the hope, is that given that goal and given that focus and in the context of moving the United States on a more sustainable energy path, that he's going to have to say no. But other forces say he wants to say yes.
Here's what gives me hope. John Kerry was an opponent of the pipeline when he was the United States Senator. And John Podesta was opponent of the pipeline. He was head of the Center for American Progress, and he is now chief counselor, or whatever his title is, for President Obama.
That's right.
You tell John Podesta next time you talk to him. We're counting on
I'll
him.
pass it along.
Igor Volsky, thanks so much. Good to see you, my friend. All right. Back
this
with the Farm
is
Bill.
the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
It's Tuesday morning, February 4, 33 minutes after the hour. This is The Bill Press Show, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide. We are there with you. Looking at you, too, on Free Speech TV and on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Coast to Coast are brought to you today by Ulico Incorporated, the good men and women of Ulico, under President Ed Smith, serving the union workplace for more than 87 years now, providing specialty insurance, risk solutions, investment products, and services. And you can find about more about their good work at their website, www.ulico.com, providing solutions for the union workplace. Well, bipartisanship is reigning, it seems, in Washington, D.C. these days. My God, we got a budget deal before the first of the year, and now it looks like we are going to get a farm bill. It took them 2 years to get there. But Republicans and Democrats have come together. How good is it? What does it include? What's lacking? Nobody knows the issue better than Roger Johnson. He is president of the National Farmers Union, which has been working on this bill for the last 2 years. President Johnson, nice to see you in the studio this morning. If I may call you Roger.
Yeah.
So, I don't know the first thing about this farm bill. Okay, why do we even need a farm bill?
Well, I think we need a farm bill because most of us like to eat.
That's a good reason.
That's a pretty good reason.
Stop right there.
There's an interesting statistic. In the United States, the consumers spend a smaller portion of their discretionary income than any other nation in the world. It's something under 10% of our discretionary income for food.
For food?
For food. Nobody has a better deal than the U.S. Now, you can say it's for lots of different reasons, but I would argue that at least one of those reasons is because we have had relatively consistent farm policies that support the production of food. And, as a society, we all want a little more food than we need. You don't want to run short because folks go hungry. So if society wants more food than you need, by definition, that extra supply is going to drive prices very low.
All right. Now, in this whole framework of food production and consumers and whatever, who do the National Farmers Union represent?
We represent the farmers. We represent family farmers and ranchers. We tend to represent medium-sized, smaller operators, but independent farmers and ranchers. We're not associated with the bigger business, the slaughter plants, et cetera, that kind of thing. We just represent the farmers.
All right. Now, from a distance and from a layman's point of view, any talk about the Farm Bill that I've heard, for the most part, has been about the food stamp side of the Farm Bill. And let's set that aside for a second. That's big and it's important.
It is.
Important to me. But is there anything on the other side that's good in this for farmers?
Sure. A number of things. I would say the fact that there's a crop insurance program is a good thing. Farmers don't get free crop insurance. You pay a premium. That premium tends to be subsidized depending upon the type of crop insurance. But crop insurance is important because farming is an extraordinarily expensive enterprise these days. And you may, on average, let's say you sell $500,000 worth of products. You may end up with a 10 to 20% gross profit on total revenue, meaning that 10% of that's $50,000. That's what you live on. That's what you pay your bills on. That's what you replace equipment and so forth on. And so it's a very expensive business, and you need some sort of a safety net to help in difficult times. So crop insurance is helpful. We would argue that sort of price support programs to help when times are difficult are important. We fundamentally argue that there are two cases where farmers need assistance from the government. One is when disasters strike, and the second one is when crop prices collapse and stay low for a very long period of time. Because as a rule, if you end up with too much production, you end up with very low prices, and those prices stay for a long, long time. And you want that machine, that farm production to continue so that we still have food, right?
Right. Now, but let me challenge you a little bit on that, in that there's a risk in everything.
Sure,
right?
there is.
There's a risk.
Of course.
You open a small business.
Yep.
You may make it or you may not. Yeah. You're maybe making a little product. I don't care what it is. You're making pocketbooks or something.
Sure.
And people are going to like them and buy them or not. So the same thing with farming, it seems to me. There's a risk. And you may have a good tomato year. You may have a bad tomato year. You may have bugs hit your crop and wipe it out, or some of it, or bad weather, or not enough rain.
Yeah.
So doesn't that kind of go with the territory?
Sure.
So take the risk. Bill. Why you want us? I would say you want us to take the risk out of your business. Why?
Well, there's two things I'd say. Number one, the government has a very strong interest in making sure that we have ample food produced, more than what would otherwise be produced, because you don't want to have a shortage. As a consequence, we have lots of money that gets spent on increasing production in lots of different ways, research and development projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of which add to production. That additional production ends up pushing prices lower. That's sort of the deal, if you will. The government wants more, so they do all these things to produce more, but then you seem to have an obligation on the other side. The other point I'd make about your pocket knives is, while they're desirable and they're fun and they're useful, most of us would argue they're not essential to the degree that food is, certainly. And so I think that is a differentiation. The other thing I would say, and it's a point that I made earlier, Bill, the system that we have in this country results in the cheapest food as a part of disposable income of any country in the world. We're doing something right with this thing. And so I think it's right, it's appropriate for the government to do these things to encourage more production, because we want that extra production.
Are we actually, in some cases, paying farmers not to produce crops?
We actually had policies to do that. One of the things this Farm Bill does is it gets rid of them. One of the things that, we've had this thing called direct payments, which these were payments that were made to farmers whether prices were good, whether prices are bad, whether you had bumper crops or whether you had a disaster crop. And we've never been fans of the direct payment concept. In fact, you'll note as we get to the debate in the Senate today, Senator Pat Roberts has declared his intention to vote against the bill. These direct payments were his idea back in 1996, the so-called Freedom to Farm Bill. And they were put in place because, well, you can ask him, but for lots of reasons, mostly because he was arguing we want to get out of this thing and we want to be WTO, we want to be trade compliant, if you will. And the WTO says, well, if you just give farmers for things that are unrelated to what they're doing, that's legal. Well, that may be, but is that a good reason to be given payments? And so this farm bill gets rid of that concept and now is much more focused on providing assistance when times are difficult.
Now, you represent the smaller farms, not the great big ag. I mean, coming from California, working for Jerry Brown at one time, I mean, I've been involved a little bit in this big battle between your family farms, if you will, and the great big agribusiness. But you're saying for family farmers, those who really are the salt of the earth, this is a good bill for them?
Yeah, it is. I mean, if we could, we'd make a lot of changes to it. But, you know, we don't have that choice. I mean, you're either for it or against it right now. So some of the things that we got in it that are very helpful. Country of origin labeling. A lot of folks care where their food comes from. And there is a law on the books that says the meat packers are supposed to tell us where our food comes from. Meat packers don't like that. They believe, in fact, we're in court right now with them. They argue that they have a First Amendment right of free speech to not tell you where your meat comes from.
I want to know where my meat comes from.
Yes,
well,
absolutely.
I mean, most people do. Most people do.
Especially
And
more and
so-
more these days. You know,
so-
people they care.
But I want to know where my clementines and my cucumbers come from, too.
Of course. And that's part of this thing as well. Although the clementine and cucumber growers, they're fine with this. They support the law. It's the meatpacking industry that doesn't like it. So they're the ones that are suing the federal government to try and be able to have their free speech right to deceive us in terms of the information that we know about the food that we eat.
So Roger Johnson's here from the National Farmers Union. NFU.org is a website. I want to take a break, but before we do it, because we've had so many people with questions about this, let's jump up to Rochester, New York. Hi, Sam. Good morning.
Hi, Bill. Bill, this farm bill sucks because what it does, it eliminates the disclosure requirement from the original version, and the government picks up 62% of the premium, $7.4 billion in deductibles, and guarantees a 14% rate of return to these wealthy farmers, insurance companies, and big ag. In addition, it cuts the $8.7 billion, affecting 850,000 people, $90 per month. I mean, what they did was they replaced the direct cash payments. They call it a new name now. They call it crop insurance.
All right, let's get a response here, Sam. I appreciate the call.
So there's a little bit of truth in what the caller is saying. Crop insurance wasn't replaced. Crop insurance has been here for a long time. There are a few enhancements that were made to crop insurance, but by and large, it's the same crop insurance under the new bill as what was under the old bill. The direct payments that the caller is talking about, in fact, are eliminated. And that is directly responsible for some significant savings in the bill itself. Now, to the caller's point about are we providing more help to the really big guys? Farmers Union has always supported payment limitations. We've always had the view that, you ought to provide this assistance up to a certain level. But after a certain level, if a farmer wants to farm the whole county or 2 counties, he ought to be on his own, that there ought to be a limit to what the government provides in assistance. And, that was one of those pieces in this farm bill where we maybe got a little tighter restriction on payment limits, but then they went and lifted the cap significantly higher. It's more generous than it ought to be, in our judgment. And it's never been as tightly controlled as it ought to be, in our judgment. But you take some
that's the legislative process,
Yeah,
right? And the miracle is, I guess, that there is a bill, or looks like there will be a bill by the end of today. More with Roger Johnson from the National Farmers Union about the Farm Bill. And more calls from you at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour. By the way, go to thehill.com and you can check my column for today in The Hill about Henry Waxman and George Miller and what giant legislative giants they have been and the mark that they have made on the Congress. Speaking of Congress, we are getting close to what looks like passage of a farm bill. I passed the House last week. It's up for a final vote in the Senate today. In studio with us, Roger Johnson is president of the National Farmers Union. Is it going to pass the Senate?
Yes.
And will the president sign it?
Yes.
So you think we're going to have a farm bill?
Yes.
Lots more calls. Before we get to them, we have to mention, you said earlier that the nutrition segment is a big part of this bill. How big?
It is. It's almost 80%, 79% of the total cost of the bill. And the bulk of nutrition
is the food stamp program.
Is the food stamp program. Yeah. Nutrition, it's predominantly that, the SNAP program or the food stamp program.
Right.
But it's also school lunches, school breakfast, the WIC program, those kinds of pretty much all of which are designed to help folks who don't have enough money to put food on the table.
And they're programs that are temporary programs, right? I mean,
yes,
if people,
they are.
If
they are in fact.
If they,
yes.
their
Your income has to
income
qualify.
goes down,
Yep.
then they get food stamps. Income goes up, they don't get
Yes.
them. So why should we cut this program at all?
Well, we never advocated any cuts in the nutrition program. And the reason we didn't is for just because of what you said, Bill. This is a program that's designed to help people in difficult times. We have high unemployment. The increase in food stamp is inversely correlated to employment. So when unemployment goes up, well, then your costs for food stamp programs are going to go up as well. That's kind of the safety net for consumers, if you will, that we argue that's the same principle should be in place for farmers.
Exactly.
When times are difficult, you ought to have help. When times are good, it goes away. The reason it's so large now, and this is the largest it's ever been in history, two reasons. One is because costs for nutrition programs have gone up because of the recession. But secondly, a lot of the costs in the other farm programs have gone down because of this very strong desire in Congress to cut budgets. And so this farm bill overall is going to save $23 billion, according to CBO, as opposed to had it just continued in the way it was before. And that's even with this enormous portion of food stamp.
All right, back to the phones here for a second. Susan is calling from Kirkland, Illinois. Hi, Susan.
Hi. It might pass, but I don't think the Republicans will want to help. If any money goes to welfare, they won't like it. If any poor people are helped. But if there's a war or somebody to kill, they want to send money to, rich Israeli friends or wars, and they're all for that, but not protecting our poor people. But I'm bothered by the meatpacking people thinking what's their motive thinking when they have been used to lying or covering up, not telling us where our meat's coming from. That's really disturbing. Why they think they can get away with not telling us stuff to begin with. Like, why are they thinking in that mode to begin with?
All right, Susan, just a quick response.
They would argue that it costs more to put a label on stuff that tells you where the meat comes from, that they have to segregate the animals that are from the U.S. versus those that come from other places. And that's true. It's going to cost a little bit more. But it's such an infinitesimally small amount that it's a weak argument.
A quick comment from Chuck in Mount Prospect, Illinois. Hi, Chuck.
Good morning. I read on, I believe it was Democratic Underground, that 97% of the SNAP cuts in this bill are in blue states only.
Yeah.
Is that true? And if it is, that's unconscionable.
Yeah. All right, Chuck, let's find out.
I think that is true. I saw the same article, and I'm not sure why that is. I suspect if you look at the map, a lot of that was those are states that tend to have heating costs that are significant. I mean, home heating costs, because they're more northern states, if you will. And the mechanism they used to make SNAP cuts was to close what they argued was a loophole. Some states, in order to not put any state money into SNAP benefits, provided a $1 a month requirement that if your fuel costs, if they give you $1 a month to cover your heating costs, then you're automatically eligible.
We've got to go. I know that's very complicated, and I know you're not responsible for it. But boy, that's a real problem if that is the case. Roger Johnson, excellent stuff, and congratulations for getting it this far. And thanks so much for coming in today. National Farmers Union. You can find out more about them at nfu.org. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
In the early 20th century, the war to end all wars didn't end war at all. It stoked the fires of change. A traumatized world was ripe for change. The world was ready for modernism. Modernists wanted to forget history, or at least reinterpret it. More than just a style, modernism applied to virtually all forms of creative expression. Innovative artists like Picasso, Escher, Dali, they all started looking at their world differently. Other artists tried painting light itself. These were the Impressionists. Surrealists went a bit further. We had entered the age of the isms. Cubism, symbolism, futurism, constructivism. All these new modern ways of looking at the world blew people away. When it came to architecture, modernists were intrigued by emerging technology. Concrete, glass and steel featured heavily in their buildings. Modernists believed that they could design a better society. Ornamental indulgence was considered a frivolous waste of effort. They thought function should always dictate form, and that mankind's intelligence, creativity and capability for radical thinking should be celebrated. Take the Russian inventor Georgy Krutikov. He suggested an idea for a city held aloft by electrical currents. This at a time when there was barely enough wattage to keep the lights on. Not everything they designed was a resounding success. But you could argue modernism was the single most influential movement of the 20th century. From house music to housewares, tables and chairs to graphic design, all have been created by the aesthetics and ideas of modernism.
I know you like the first 2 hours so much you're demanding a third hour this morning. Well, we're going to give you a third hour, even though you can't watch it on Free Speech TV. You can on a video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. And in the next hour, two big projects you all care about, I care a lot about. We're going to talk about and learn more about that Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, and why organized labor is against it. We're also going to learn a lot more about the Keystone Pipeline, so stay tuned. Hour number 3.
This is the Bill Press Show.
President Obama on education today. He's going out to a middle school classroom up in Adelphi, Maryland. He also will be meeting with the entire Democratic caucus of the House of Representatives at 4:30 this afternoon, he and the Vice President, in the East Room of the White House. And then the two of them also have a meeting on Afghanistan today. Busy day for the President, and our briefing with Jay Carney. Press briefing at 1 p.m. this afternoon. When we come back, let's take a look at the TPP with Celeste Drake
This
from the AFL-CIO.
is the Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
The Senate voting today on the Farm Bill. It looks like Congress may actually get something done. The president says he'll sign it. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday. What day is it?
It's Tuesday.
Tuesday, February 4.
It's Tuesday. What, you think I would ever get this wrong, this sheet of paper that we have?
I would advance the agenda here. I'm going to move into Wednesday. I'm tired of Tuesday already. Good morning, everybody. On Tuesday, February 4, good to see you wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours. We are there with you, and we're there for you on your local progressive talk radio station, coast to coast, and, of course, on our video stream at TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. The Bill Press Show will tell you what's going on this morning. And to get your comments, of course, it's a two-way street here. You tell us what all of these issues mean to you and to your family. 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number. You can send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. One of the biggest issues of the day, we just talked about the Farm Bill. Again, Senate debating that for final passage today. That's a big issue. And so is the issue of trade and free trade authority and the so-called TPP, which the president has been pushing and asking for. Celeste Drake has been with us before to talk about the TPP. She is the Trade and Globalization Policy Specialist for the AFL-CIO. Joining us back in studio this morning. Celeste, nice to see you.
Great to see you.
Thanks for coming in and joining our team here, Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hey.
Alicia
Good
Cruz
morning.
On the phones, and Cyprian Bolding, our videographer. Before we get into that, Celeste, we were talking, it's been a couple of weeks ago, Peter. Remember, we bounced out to Las Vegas to talk to a reporter out there about the big electronics show. And
CES, yeah.
The
Consumer Electronics Show.
Right. And all the buzz out there, a lot of the buzz, was about these smart cars, and particularly these cars that, like, talk to you and talk to each other, and what do they call it? Collision avoidance, maybe, is the feature?
Yeah, crash avoidance.
Crash avoidance, yeah. And I saw a commercial, one of the commercials for the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Remember when your father used to do all this stuff for you, and you're like your father, you'd be even driving with your father, and he'd say, "Oh, you got to hit the brakes because Well, now the car does it. Don't even need Dad to tell you there's a car in front of you.
I feel so irrelevant now as a father. I mean,
Anthony Fox, the fairly new transportation secretary, yesterday in a speech was talking about this is the exciting new thing in the whole field of transportation.
I don't think you can understate the significance of having vehicles that are smart enough to realize when an accident is going to happen, and they're able to stop it.
It's just incredible, this technology. And I've seen video and demonstrations of it. And these driving cars, cars that drive themselves, right? Which they're actually using now. Google has a few and whatever. And this is part of their technology. If they see there's an obstacle in the road or even a little thing, they'll apply the brakes. You get too close to a car, they'll apply the brakes. It's amazing.
I haven't seen them live, but the technology is fabulous.
Right?
It's a great innovation.
So who are we?
It's insane.
We're not even like needed anymore, right?
Not quite the flying cars of the Jetsons yet, but almost.
Almost.
Right?
We're heading there. It's just, to me, it's unbelievable that we could get there. You could actually, I don't think you ever avoid all crashes, right? But even if you could 10% or 20% of them, right?
It'd be amazing.
Totally. So there we go. Good for Anthony Fox. So Celeste Drake is here to talk TPP, and a little bit later, the last half hour we'll spend talking about Keystone Pipeline with a reporter from Politico. But first, Peter,
this
with the
is
big
the
story
Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. You just mentioned the Super Bowl and some of the ads. There was a football game as well, which the Seahawks won. But we now know that a record number of people, Americans, watched the game. The numbers are in. 111.5 million viewers watched Fox's coverage of the Super Bowl on Sunday night. That is the largest audience in American television history. No one has ever watched a TV show bigger than that. The previous record was the Super Bowl 2 years ago when the New York Giants beat the New England Patriots. That was 111.3 million viewers, so they beat it pretty handily.
What, amazing. Those numbers. Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
So did they tune in to see Russell Wilson, right?
Well, I will say...
Or did they tune in to see Peyton Manning, or did they tune in to see Bruno Mars?
You could, all of the above, apparently. But, they had built the story so well leading up. Number one offense. Number one defense.
Yeah.
Old Peyton Manning, young Russell Wilson. They just had this, the storyline was there, and I guess everybody just tuned in. So, as if you didn't think they could get any bigger. Speaking of the Super Bowl, so there is a website that has adult content on it that monitored the behaviors of viewers in Seattle and viewers in Denver during the Super Bowl to see who was logging on during the game, right, so to speak. And so they noticed that once Denver started getting beaten so badly that the traffic to their website that streams porn skyrocketed.
Oh.
They monitored Seattle and Denver. Oh. Seattle fans stuck with it all the way up until about 11 p.m. Then they went to the porn websites. Denver started peeling off at around 7 o'clock after the first couple
Why not?
Right.
Not?
I mean, something more entertaining than the game, I guess. And the first national study to take a look. Go ahead.
You could also. No, I was just going to.
You have something else.
Well, you could also multitask. There's nothing wrong with multitasking.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could.
Touche.
The first national study that takes a look at sugar intake and the effects on heart disease has been released by the JAMA Internal Medicine. They found out that those whose intake of sugar was 7% higher than normal have a 19% chance of contracting heart disease. In other words, the more sugar you eat, the better chance you get of getting heart disease. And it doesn't take a lot. Like one can of soda gives you like a 33% chance of having heart disease. More than just someone who doesn't drink sugary soda. So avoid the sugar now, too,
There's another reason.
One more thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so where are we? We get so many calls. I mean, among our listening audience and viewing audience every day about people concerned about this Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is the latest in the trade deals or proposed, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That started with NAFTA.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Are any of them good? I mean, what's? I mean, we do live in a global economy. We have to compete globally. So don't we need these trade deals?
We need to trade, and trade is good and can be economically beneficial on many fronts. We don't need trade deals that are on this model. This is starting with NAFTA, it's a very specific trade model, which goes far beyond just reducing tariffs to make goods cheaper as they cross from one country into another country. And it sets a whole series of rules that basically sort of box in the policy space of each country and say you can regulate, but only up to this level and only so far. And that's the part that can be really damaging and potentially increase the dangers in terms of consumer product safety or food safety or workplace safety when corporations come in and try and take advantage of these constrictions and go to a country and challenge a law or regulation and say, that's too far, you've now violated a trade obligation.
So, but there's also only so much we can do when we're dealing with another country, right? I mean, we want the wages there to be higher, but we can't force them to pay $10.10 an hour or or $15 an hour, whatever we want it to be, right? We want them not to be polluting their rivers and their air, but we can't force them to do it, right? Aren't there some?
That's true. And I think in terms of wages, the best thing that we can do for wages in other countries is to really make sure that each country upholds its obligations as a member of the International Labor Organization, which is an arm of the UN, and says these are universal freedoms. You know, everyone is sort of very familiar with human rights. There's a universal freedom of speech and a universal right to assemble and protest. Well, these apply in the workplace too, and workers have a universal right called freedom of association to form a union. And even if workers in low-wage countries have this right and it's defended by their government, they can get together and, you know, maybe they won't raise their wages to U.S. levels, but that's fine. They can raise their wages to an appropriate level for their country and their economy. And that's what will empower workers and really give us a better level playing field globally.
And are there environmental standards included as well?
In trade agreements, the U.S. has gone from basically no environmental standards in the NAFTA. There was this ineffective, unenforceable side agreement to better and better standards as it's been with labor. But so far, neither is to a place where it's really effective at defending the environment or defending workers or at offsetting the sort of limitations that's in all the rest of the agreements. So they say that TPP is going to have 29 chapters. Well, there'll be one chapter that's designed to protect workers, one chapter that's designed to protect the environment, a chapter on tariffs, and then the rest of it is sort of corporate rights and benefits.
Oh, yeah, a little one-sided, shall we say, right? All right, so the President Obama really wants this. So he wants what's called fast-track authority, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, which basically gives him a free hand almost in making these trade deals. Is that
pretty much? And that's the problem.
That's
with
what
it.
he wants for the TPP.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and the bill that's been introduced in the House and the Senate would give whoever's the president for the next 4 years the ability to bring back any completed trade agreement and have that agreement fall under fast-track authority. And that means fast-track authority means Congress has to move it in a specified period of time, no amendments, limited debate. And what we found in practice is that the World Trade Organization moved under fast-track rules, NAFTA moved under fast-track rules, and all of these trade deals could have been significantly improved, but Congress never had an opportunity to really say this doesn't meet our standards, you have to go back to the negotiating table.
So President Obama, I know he's been pushing for this. It's a top priority for him. Yesterday, Majority Leader Harry Reid indicated he has a different approach, maybe, huh? So
he did. He said that he doesn't like fast track, and that
basically said forget about it, huh?
Pretty much. I mean, there was some equivocation. Now's not the right time to pass it, but you know, it's great to have a leader like Harry Reid speak up because he's traditionally been really good on trade, recognizing that we need it. He needs it for his state. I mean, tourism is a form of trade, but the rules matter, and how workers and communities and the environment and family farms can benefit really matter. And he has stood up for a fair trade agenda, and it's great to have him say, look, this is wrong. We need to do it better.
Which one would think, right, that means it's not going to happen this year.
We hope so.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, Senator Baucus, who's the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee and the chief sponsor of the bill that's been introduced, is going to be leaving at some point to go be our new ambassador to China. And so the new chair of that committee, who's presumptively Senator Wyden of Oregon, he may introduce his own version of a fast track bill. And so we may have to go through this again. And obviously there needs to be some way for a president to negotiate trade agreements, but the model of fast track doesn't allow enough public input, doesn't allow enough public scrutiny, and isn't the right model.
Fast track, TPP, here's your chance, 866-55-PRESS with Celeste Drake from the AFL-CIO. Now, here's what I find fascinating about this whole issue, which reflected in an article in The Hill this morning. I told you about my column in The Hill, which we have tweeted out, Peter? Or
yes, indeed. We have indeed.
Today, talking about Henry Waxman and George Miller. This is a news article in The Hill, and the headline, right on what we're talking about, says, get this, Tea Party members team with union leaders to fight Obama's trade plan. Tea Party teams with union leaders to fight Obama's trade plan. So this is something on which the left and the right have come together? Really?
I would say we're working in parallel more than we're working together.
You haven't joined forces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, we welcome all voices that are critical of fast track and that would help us achieve something different. And I think the issue for those on the right seem to care more about the process, which, as I explained, it's not a very democratic process. We're concerned about the process, but also the content, that these agreements have killed jobs and not really been great for anything else for the 99%. It sort of shows the ridiculousness of the labels left and right, because in the end, Tea Party voters, I think they want jobs, they want clean environment, they want to have protect family farms. And so, maybe this, where we're working in parallel, is an opportunity for some folks who may have succumbed to the anti-union rhetoric to say, wait a minute, these guys are fighting for me and for my job too. So,
yeah, that would be really nice if that came out of this as a benefit.
That's kind of idealistic, but
for the time being, make a pact with the devil to stop this thing. Why not? 866-55-PRESS. Your comments and your questions for Celeste Drake from the AFL-CIO about fast track and the TPP. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Well, it looks like we might have finally learned our lesson about fast track authority and some of these trade deals. Certainly things are going a little slower for this one than they have for previous trade deals. Celeste Drake is here from the AFL-CIO. So this may be on the sidelines for 2014 anyhow, do you think?
It may be. I don't think that the question is totally resolved, but we'd like to get it on the sidelines until we're sure that it's an agreement that's really going to work for workers, and if it's not, keep it off the agenda forever.
Right. They've been going to work, so it's good for workers in this country. Do these trade deals? Do they make it easier to export jobs?
They do. They definitely do, and the way that they do that is through the provisions in the investment chapter, and they give a corporation or anyone who invests in the trading partner country a special right to skip the domestic courts of that country and to go to a private arbitration tribunal and challenge not just a taking of property, but laws and regulations they don't like.
So it seems to me, the first thing rule for these trade deals ought to be, do they work in our best interest? And it sounds like they don't always. Quickly, John is calling from out in Chicago on WCPT. Hey, John.
Hey, good morning, Bill.
What's up?
Well, I think that fast track authority is extremely important for a president to have, and the ability to negotiate trade agreements that can benefit the United States without Congress getting in the way with all their petty differences and trying to stop those things from happening. And our trade partners or people who want to trade with us are not going to do that if they know that if they sit at a table for you negotiating a deal, that's going to get blown up in Congress.
Okay, got your point. You've heard that before, Celeste, I'm sure. A real quick response?
Absolutely. There is some sense of giving the president some kind of trade promotion authority, but the kind that takes away public scrutiny and Congress's ability to say this isn't good enough is the wrong kind.
All right. So the right kind of presidential authority. Celeste Drake, great job. Thanks so much for coming in.
You're welcome.
We'll be back and talk
is the Bill
Keystone
Press Show.
Pipeline.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. Tuesday morning, February 4. How about it? The Bill Press Show coming to you live from our nation's capital. A lot of big issues today, and we're trying to probe all of them and look into all of them. The Farm Bill we have talked about, a TPP, the trade deal we've talked about, and the other great big one up in the news this week is the Keystone Pipeline. In the news, particularly because of an EIS, environmental impact statement, prepared by the State Department, which has spent the last couple of years looking into the environmental impact of this mammoth project. 1,700 and some miles long, crossing about 10 states to take the oil from crude from the tar sands of Alberta to the Gulf Coast refineries, and then who knows what would happen to it. Some environmentalists a little stunned and disappointed in what the State Department reported or concluded, I guess, about looking at this project. Andrew Restuccia covers energy issues for Politico, their energy reporter. He is in studio with us this morning to talk about Keystone. Hi, Andrew. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So this report was a long time coming. Why did it take so long?
Well, that's one of the big questions. I mean, there's been a lot of sort of political delay here. Republicans in 2011 passed a bill essentially saying we need to delay this. We need to have this happen as quickly as possible, and then Obama rejected it.
Without an environmental impact statement.
Exactly.
Just do it,
yeah.
right?
And so Obama essentially said, we can't do that. We need to actually, do the analysis. So that delayed it another year. I mean, there's been just a series of these delays, and this final environmental report finally came out on Friday.
Right. President Obama once said that he would not approve Keystone Pipeline unless it were shown that it would not significantly contribute to carbon emissions.
Exactly,
right? Yeah. The State Department says it would not significantly contribute to carbon emissions. So that means the president's going to approve it?
Not quite. So the top line finding in the report was that it wouldn't probably significantly contribute to climate emissions, and it's important to.
Its impact would be negligible, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's important to really define what they mean by significantly, right? I mean, and that's a little bit unclear right now. And there's also some exceptions in the report. So there are other scenarios in the report where it actually could exacerbate climate change, and that's what environmentalists are latching onto right now.
So. How could it not? I don't. Put it this way. As I understand it, the basic premise is it would not significantly contribute because the tar sands, the oil is going to be produced, come out of the ground anyway, and it's either going to be up there or down here, and so its impact is going to be its impact. It is what it is. But how can they conclude without this pipeline? Why is it certain that this oil is going to be?
Well, they argue that there's a huge
that
the Canadians have a huge business interest to get this out of the ground.
Okay.
There are other potential pipelines that could take it to sort of the west coast of Canada and potentially the east coast. And then there's this other factor, which is rail transport, right? So you can essentially carry the oil by rail. If necessary. It's more expensive. The oil industry doesn't really want to do it that way. They're already doing it that way because the Keystone's been delayed so long. So I think the preferred option is certainly Keystone from the oil industry perspective.
Well, I guess what I'm getting to is this is the tar sands are in Canada. Why do they have to bring it to through the United States to the Gulf Coast? If they want to do it in Canada, let them do it in Canada. Build their own damn pipeline, build their own refineries up there, export it up, and keep it a Canadian company. Do business in Canada. Why do we have to get involved even?
Well, that's certainly the argument that opponents are making. I mean, I think the counter to that is it's probably going to move by rail to some extent. You've seen quite a few rail accidents in the last 6 months or so, fiery sort of deadly rail accidents. And one of the arguments in the report is that it's safer to move it by pipeline. Now, that's certainly a contentious argument that lots of people disagree with. I mean, you have the threat of oil spills with the pipeline. I mean, we've seen quite a few of them over the last several years.
Bill O'Reilly mentioned this issue with President Obama in his now famous interview in the Super Bowl. There wasn't a long exchange, but you hear O'Reilly pressing the point that now that you've got this EIS, basically, Mr. President, you've got no choice. So let's listen to that real quickly.
Keystone Pipeline, new study comes in, environmental impact negligible. 42,000 jobs. You're going to okay it, I assume.
Well, first of all, it's not 42,000. That's not correct. It's a couple thousand to build the pipeline. But
42 all told.
The bottom line is what we're going to do is the process now goes, agencies comment on what the State Department did, public's allowed to comment. Kerry's going to give me a recommendation. We're not going to.
So I assume we're going to do that after 5 years.
We'll take a look at it.
Okay.
I assume we're going to do that. Yes.
President O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly, have said, okay, we're going to do that. Now let's just take on. Now, where does this 42,000 figure come from?
So it is. The State Department does actually conclude in the report that there's going to be up to 42,000 jobs during the construction phase of the pipeline.
I thought it was 1,950.
This is the number the State Department actually used.
42,000.
But there's a big but, and that is after the pipeline is finished, there's going to be something only like 35 jobs associated with the project. Now,
I've heard 50, but you say low as 35.
Yeah, as low as 35. It could be higher. There's a lot of sort of fudging with the numbers that you hear, especially from big proponents of the project like O'Reilly.
Yeah. So we're going to allow all this construction, all this potential environmental risk for 35 jobs.
Right, and you notice the president is sort of actively pushing back on that number, I think, which is telling. I mean, he's consistently sort of raised questions about the job figures.
Now that you mention it,
Yeah.
the 50 figure I've heard came from President Obama, who said
he did, yeah.
50.
And actually, the State Department is saying even lower, 35 permanent. That's actually once the pipeline gets going. Yeah.
All right. So the process now is where exactly?
Okay, so you have we're now in something called the national interest determination phase. So they've already done the environmental analysis, and they're going to kind of try to figure out, okay, what are the kind of the bigger factors here that need to be taken into account? Energy security, for example, how this would affect foreign relations with other governments. And so there has to be a determination essentially from John Kerry about whether or not this is in the national interest, not just the environmental interest. And that could happen any time, really. I mean, it is about a 3-month period where this needs to be considered, and then there's no final deadline to make a decision.
So he makes a recommendation then, right?
To the president.
To the president.
And, presumably the president accepts that recommendation.
But he
might not, right?
He could just do the opposite,
right?
And so, is there any period for now that this environmental impact statement is out? Is there any period for? Is this a draft or is this the final? Is there any period for public comment?
So this is the final. It finalizes a draft that was put out in March, and there'll be a national interest determination period with a 30-day public comment period, plus 8 federal agencies can weigh in, including the EPA, which was quite critical of the State Department's work so far.
Okay,
so that's kind of a wild card.
And
too.
when does that period start?
February 5th.
February 5, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the next 30 days,
the public can weigh in on this. Yeah.
And I imagine there are going to be some public demonstrations and protests and comments, right?
There already was actually last night in front of the White House. A couple hundred people gathered, anti-Keystone kind of activists, chanting to Obama essentially to reject the project. And I think there were something like 270 demonstrations just yesterday around the country in opposition to the pipeline. And this isn't going to stop. This is going to continue over the next couple months.
Isn't this pipeline kind of bigger than the issue, bigger than the pipeline? It seems to me that this is sort of seen as a test. Or this is seen as a crossroads. If we are really going to move to a post-fossil fuel economy and energy policy, this is the time you've got to do it. And if we go down the track of the Keystone Pipeline, then we're still stuck in fossil fuel land, right?
Right. I mean, this decision is so much bigger at this point than the pipeline itself. It's sort of a symbolic message that Obama's sending to his liberal base, the people who elected him, more or less. Okay, this is where I'm going to lead the country. Am I going to be committed to kind of fossil fuels, or am I going to move toward renewables and other things?
Right.
That's probably not how Obama would put it, but I think that's how.
But this is the time to show it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you really, it seems to me, if you're really committed to an alternative energy, renewable energy future, if you will, if you really believe that climate control is a serious problem, then you got to go down this path. You can't go down the Keystone Pipeline path. But you mentioned something a little earlier about this is midterm election year, and there are some Democrats who oppose this pipeline, and there's some Democrats who really would be good for them probably if the pipeline were approved.
Mary Landrieu, she's in a tight race in Louisiana. She's a huge supporter of the pipeline.
But the White House said yesterday at our briefing with Jay Carney that the White House is going to keep Keystone free of any political influence.
I think it's too late for that. I mean, I don't know how you can argue that at this point. I mean, it's not.
I was going to say, is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean, it is so mired in politics at this point. It's been 5 years of back and forth. It's already been through the 2012 election where it was an issue. It's going to be an issue in the midterms again. I mean, there's no denying that politics is just tied up in all of this. I mean, you just and that's not to say that the State Department process is political necessarily. That's for other people to judge. But
right,
yeah.
But the final decision,
right? I mean, you can't not factor that in.
All right. No, so let me, and we're going to open up the phones here, so get ready. 866-55-PRESS or Twitter or Facebook, you know how to join us. What you think the president should do here, or do you think this is a done deal already? 866-55-PRESS. A lot of people smell a rat with the State Department EIS, that after all this talk, kind of critical of the Keystone Pipeline, it looks like the State Department is paving the way for Obama to approve it. 866-55-PRESS. But I want to ask you, Andrew, before we break. So you've got John Kerry in the Senate. He was like the #1 critic of the Keystone Pipeline. You've got John Podesta now as head of the Center for American Progress, who was openly outspoken, advocating, lobbying against the Keystone Pipeline. And you've got President Obama, who says we'll only create 50 permanent jobs, right? What is it in the cards to turn it down?
I mean, I think there's definitely a disconnect here, right, between some of the public comments that officials associated with the White House have made and what the State Department is saying. And so over the next 30 days, 40 days, 60 days, however long it takes, I think you're going to start to see, okay, how do those two things mesh? I actually don't think John Kerry has really weighed in on the pipeline very strongly. He's been a huge advocate of action on climate change.
Yes.
But he hasn't quite said, actually never in his Senate career has really took a position.
Okay.
So that'll be an interesting factor here. I mean, he's getting tons of pressure from sort of like environmentalists and liberals, obviously, to reject the pipeline. But can he reject the pipeline and still be this sort of climate champion that he says he is? And that's going to be one of the big questions. I'm not sure if Obama necessarily feels as much pressure as Kerry does.
The way I would put it, can he approve the pipeline and still call himself an advocate of doing something about climate change?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I'm not sure. 866-55-PRESS, join the conversation here. This is going to be one of the biggest decisions of the Obama presidency, and it is coming right up. So we got 30 days to comment on it. Let's start right now at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show. On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour with the Keystone Pipeline front and center, particularly now that the State Department has released its EIS on Keystone, giving it a fairly positive take that no negligible effect on carbon emissions, a conclusion I find difficult to understand. With us in studio, Andrew Restuccia is energy reporter for Politico. Andrew, again, good to have you with us. Lots of comments and calls here, so let's find out some of this public reaction.
Couple things first from Twitter. We're on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. It's a good place, by the way, for some people like Suzanne Prescott posted a picture of a protest on Keystone from Albuquerque. So that's a good spot to share that. We'll get that out there. Also, Mike asks where the site is where the public can weigh in on Keystone. We talked about how the public can weigh in. How do they do that?
I think you can do it through regulations.gov, which is the website. That's how they usually just take comments to the federal system.
Regulations.gov.
Regulations.gov. I'm not, and you would have to do some searching once you're on the website, I think, but we can probably post that at Politico too.
And check out our Twitter at BP Show. Once we get it, we'll put it out there. So
we'll put it up there. I imagine too, if the Sierra Club has been taking the lead on the opposition to this, they probably have a direct link on their website.
I'm sure,
SierraClub.com, I think it is. Chuck is calling from Chicago. Hello, Chuck.
Hey, Bill. I have to chime in on that. The thing I don't hear anybody talking about is this isn't our oil. Like, this isn't like a pipeline going from North Dakota to Texas.
No, exactly.
This is Canada's oil that we're going to be giving to China.
Yes.
And I don't understand.
Sorry we lost you there, Chuck, but I got your point. We talked about a little bit about this, Andrew, earlier on, right? It's oil from Canada going through the United States and then probably going to, we don't know, right? Probably after being refined, going to China.
Well,
so we're just a transport here, right?
Yeah.
We're again.
I mean, there's been some analysis that says that it could stay in the U.S., but there's really no there's no solid really. You don't know exactly what's going to happen for sure. TransCanada, the company that's developing Keystone, insists will say all day long that that'll stay in the United States.
I mean, so it's not.
Then they actually have some contracts with companies saying that. But
you'd have to say, in terms of the benefit for the United States, right? It's not going to lower gas prices. It's not going to give us a longer supply of gas. It's not the kind of oil that we're looking for.
It's most likely not going to have an effect on gas prices. I mean, because the gas prices are set on world markets, and one project in the U.S. probably, but it won't. It also won't make them go up. I mean, it's probably not going to.
I don't think if there's anything in it for us except 35 jobs. Michael in Loveland, Colorado. Michael, what do you say?
Yes, on 60 Minutes for 2020, they clearly have shown that the government's own estimates will be that the gasoline prices will go up for certain, 64 to 65 cents a gallon. And that's due to the low cost that we pay at this point, because it is not going all the way down to the coast to be refined, and I think that's a problem.
I don't know.
I think there could certainly be some regional fluctuation in gas prices. The analysis is sort of all over the map here. I think over time and sort of over across the whole country, it probably won't have a really significant effect. I mean, there's so many other factors that influence gas prices at this point. But there's still some analysis out there that's being done on this.
Finally, what do you think the timing is on this?
I think we have at least 90 days. It could be sooner, it could be later. I mean, there's a kind of process that's in place, and there's really no set timeline, but I think we got about at least 3 or 4 months.
Before Kerry acts or the president
Before
acts?
Kerry acts, and I think the president will quickly act after
Will quickly act after that. All right. Andrew, we'll be watching it, and we'll have to talk to you again about it soon. I know a lot more calls, folks. Sorry we ran out of time. You can always send your comments to us on our BillPressShow.com site. And check there for the link to where you can comment on the Keystone Pipeline EIS. Thanks, Andrew, for coming in.
Thank you.
I'll be back with a final parting shot on this topic.
This is the Bill Press Show. The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
And finally, on the Keystone Pipeline, as we were just discussing, there's been some good news and bad news. The good news was when President Obama last summer said he would only approve the pipeline if it would not significantly exacerbate the problem of greenhouse emissions. The bad news came on Friday with that environmental impact statement by the State Department concluding that there would be no significant environmental damage. Don't know how they came up to that recommendation, but now it's up to Secretary of State to review the EIS, make his recommendation to the President, and then it's up to President Obama to make the final decision. I believe for the President, this is a real test of his credibility. If he really believes climate change is a serious issue, if he really cares for the environment, if he really believes we have to move away from our dependence on fossil fuels, and if he really believes, as he said, that the project will only create some 35 to 50 long-term jobs, then he must reject the Keystone Pipeline. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Tuesday. Come back and see us again Wednesday morning. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.